If you suffer from anxiety, I believe that hypnosis is one of the most effective tools you can use to really get a handle on it. And I believe that because hypnosis allows you to access the subconscious mind, which brings you right to the source of the anxiety in the first place. It's important to know that you have two minds. You have a conscious mind and a subconscious mind. The conscious part of your mind is the part of you that's logical and rational. And so this is probably the part of your mind you've been relying on to deal with the anxiety. But the problem is that it's your subconscious mind that's actually generating the anxiety in the first place. So it's kind of like a dog trying to catch its tail. It's like it's always one step ahead of you. No matter what strategies you use consciously, they just don't work. The anxiety just keeps on being generated. So understanding hypnosis, I think, allows you to get right to the source of the problem and start to influence it in a very, very powerful way. I'm going to show you what I mean here. So the way to think about the subconscious mind is the language of the subconscious mind is your imagination. In the primary way that we use our imagination, we kind of watch internal movies, right? And what's a movie? It's a picture and it's sound. And so to feel anxiety, a lot of times what you're doing is you're imagining a future situation and you're almost like watching a movie of it. And there's a visual component to it. Again, whatever the situation is, let's just say you have a test coming up, right? And you have a test anxiety. So you imagine that test, you imagine where you're going to take it sitting there, you visualize that in your mind, and then you imagine an auditory component. You say things to yourself. Oh, I'm not ready for this. I'm going to fail this. I'm not going to do well. And then there's the physiological reaction to watching that movie. Okay? So just like when you watch a real movie, like if you watch a horror movie, you have a physiological reaction to it, right? And so you can be in a safe place watching this movie, but if it's a horror movie, a lot of times you're tense, you're tight. Okay, there's a physiological reaction to watching it. If you watch a comedy, again, you're still watching light on a screen, same environment, and you have a completely different physiological response. Okay, so that's what's going on a lot of times in our mind is when you're feeling anxiety, you're imagining these future scenarios and you're imagining them in a way that's creating this physiological anxiety response to it. What I would suggest to you is you go right to the source and start to change the internal movies that you're watching and learn how to influence your physiological responses. And both of those things happen at the same time when you use hypnosis. Because hypnosis, again, in its most simple form, it's really this physiological calm and relaxed state. And this state is really important because you have a vagus nerve that runs from your gut, around your heart, all the way up to your brain. And when we're tense and stressed, when our sympathetic nervous system, fight or flight, has been activated, our higher brain regions stop functioning, they come offline. And we just get very physical and tense. And when we calm down and relax, we activate our parasympathetic nervous system. And then when we're calm and we're relaxed, but most importantly, we activate higher brain functions, okay? So when you're using hypnosis, the first thing you're doing is creating a physiological state of calm relaxation. Now, when it comes to anxiety, typically the place you want to really get good at relaxing is your stomach area, right? Because that's where you store a lot of that anxiety kind of generates from. And so the practice starts by relaxing the stomach, relaxing the chest, shoulders, face muscles. And you create this physiological reaction and you relax. And now you can start imagining things the way you want them to go. Now, this is work. I'm not saying you do this and all of a sudden it just cures anxiety. It depends, Depends on where you're at with the spectrum of how much anxiety you're experiencing. But it becomes a practice that starts to give you control over what's creating it. And so now you relax yourself. And again, we'll just use the test scenario. Instead of imagining yourself, getting in this test and being stressed out and tense and saying all these negative things to yourself, you imagine going into that test scenario feeling the way that you want to. And maybe you'd like to feel calm and relaxed, focused, confident, maybe even excited. Again, I don't know. You can take it as far as you want because at this point, it's all in your imagination. You could imagine that you got wings on, you could fly around in the sky if you choose to. And so I promise you, you can imagine better scenarios in the future, even if they don't happen, because at least before they happen, you're not freaking out about it. You know what I mean? They don't have to experience it once. But again, what ends up happening is the way we anticipate things impacts how we experience them. And so when it comes to anxiety, again, the process is that we're usually freaking out about something that's to come. And that's another way to put that is that it's something that's in our imagination at this point. And so the real secret to really getting a handle on anxiety is starting to get a handle on our imagination and our physiological responses. And so when you get better at relaxing your body, and I mean deeply, I mean your stomach completely and totally relaxing, your breathing just becoming fuller, your shoulders and chest just opening up, your face and eyes just completely relaxing, it just feels nice. And to some degree, that in and of itself is a little bit of an antidote to it. But then on top of that, the more important piece is we start imagining the scenarios that trigger the anxiety response. We start imagining those scenarios in a more optimistic way. Right? We start saying things to ourselves. We start imagining these future situations more the way we want them to be. And at the very least, if you imagine, let's just go back to the test scenario. If you just imagine the test scenario being completely calm and relaxed, so you create this calm in yourself now, and you imagine the test feeling just as calm, and then you play that movie through in your mind, all of a sudden it's a brand new movie, and that new movie is going to create a new response. Now, I understand that this new movie you create is going to butt up against the old movie that you've been imagining for a long time. Okay, that's the way anxiety works. But it's a first step in understanding what is creating the anxiety in the first place. Right? So I want you to think about that. I want you, and again, under this video, I've got a link to a hypnosis session that's going to help you relax. And you'll see what I mean. And please experience it. Right? Because there's one thing I'm kind of talking to you about it. I'm talking to you consciously. But when you experience the calm and the relaxation that hypnosis can bring you, I think you're going to understand what I'm saying on a much, much deeper level. So please go and listen to that. And the other thing is, start to notice what are the things that you're imagining in your mind. What movies are you watching that are triggering the anxiety? Because the first step is always awareness. Start to understand what movies are triggering the anxiety, and then you start working on how can I make those movies that are still in the future and still in my imagination, how can I make them into movies that make me feel better as opposed to making me feel tense and stressed and anxious, okay? And again, it is a process. I want to crystallize that. Again, when I work with people one-on-one, it's a faster process, but when you're doing this on your own using hypnosis, it's a path you're walking, okay? And so each and every day you get better and better at it, but I promise you, I think you'll find that it's a much more effective technique than just trying to, talk yourself out of feeling stressed, right? Because again, we're getting right to the source of it. So I hope this helps you out. And again, please listen to the session below, and I wish you the best.